It's a new month, and so that means we get to decide which one of these books we're going to read by spinning this. It's time to play Fiction Roulette. And so new month. As always, I'm gonna let the wheel decide what I read and review in the month of July. Every month what I do, if you're new to the channel, is I fill the wheel with like 10 book titles that I'm really interested in reading. I usually read more than 4 books per month, but I just spin the wheel 4 times, and then whatever this little thing here, this little dangly bit falls on, that's what I'm gonna read for the month. I wanna read all of it, but there's not enough time, you know? Hence the wheel. And so I'll be spinning the wheel 4 times, and then on top of that, I'm also gonna let you know what the channel's book club has chosen for us all to read together for the PBJ book club this month. And I'll also let you know how you can join in if you're interested. We've got a little bit of a different book this month. It's not different in the sense of it's unusual, like it's a really famous book, but the book that they chose this month it sort of surprised me a little bit. And once you know what it is, I think you're going to know why. So there's 10 options on the wheel here, and I'm going to quickly tell you what each of them are, and then we'll start spinning. The first book that I'd be interested in reading is Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. So this one's been on the wheel a few times now, probably about 3 times, and it's a coming-of-age story set in a small Alabama town during the 1960s, and it kicks off with this sort of traumatic moment from the main character's childhood. The main character is a kid named Corey, and he and his dad see a car drive straight into the lake, and they rush to help, but what they find in the water is disturbing. So that moment basically cracks open this bigger mystery that runs through the whole story. So as Corey's trying to figure out what really happened on that day that they saw the car crash, he's also just living life. He's dealing with school and dodging bullies. He's hanging out with his friends and just facing the everyday challenges of growing up in a time and a place that is, in one sense, he's kind of like nostalgic for, like he's looking back on his childhood, but also it's charged with racial tension as well. So from everything that I've heard about this book, the storytelling is just incredibly vivid. People say that it just sort of like pulls you into this, I've already used the word nostalgia, but I'm just gonna have to use it again, into this nostalgic time. I've only ever read one other Robert McCammon book, which is Swan Song, and it was a banger. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. Ever since then, Boy's Life has been on my radar. People always recommend it in the comment section as well. So this book's been calling my name for a while. I'd love to read it. The next book I'd love to read is World War Z by Max Brooks. I put it up as one of the options for the PBJ Book Club. So spoiler alert, this one didn't get picked, which is why I'm putting it on the wheel. World War Z, as it says here, on the cover here, is an oral history of the zombie war. It features interviews conducted by the UN years after a war that broke out after a zombie apocalypse arrived on Earth. I think it's just basically a bunch of people that are being interviewed by the UN. You've got all different kinds of survivors. You've got soldiers and doctors and, just ordinary citizens, and they each share their first-hand experiences of what happened. I quite like zombie horror, but this sounds like a different take on it than what I'm used to. Not just because of the way that it's formatted, but also because in this book, it sounds like we're going to be able to retroactively live through the events. It's supposed to feel like deeply realistic in a way, and have some really strong world building, especially around like the political side of things, how the military responds, how governments collapse and adapt. And we also get to kind of zoom out and watch it all unfold on like a global scale, because the stories are just like spanning every corner of the globe. My favorite part of any zombie story or any outbreak story really is that initial chaos. Do you know what I'm saying by that? When society is being tested and it starts to fracture and then finally it just collapses and it's a big free-for-all and nobody knows who to turn to. No one's coming to the rescue. That, for me, is always the most intense and exciting part of these kinds of stories. I care a little bit less about the rebuilding phase and even like some of the survival elements. It's still interesting. I still enjoy them, but mostly I enjoy the beginning when everything is falling apart because, I don't know, there's something exciting about that idea, ain't there? If I read this, I think what I'm going to do is, obviously I'm going to read it, the physical book that I'm holding in my hands right now, but I also might mix in the audio book as well because I've heard that the audio book is really amazing. It's got a full cast. And I think that Mark Hamill is one of the narrators, along with a bunch of others. So, I'd really love to read this. And I'd really love to listen to this as well. Next book I'd be interested in reading is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I first heard about this book on the YouTube channel Man Carrying Thing. And it seems like one of those titles that really splits opinion. If you look at the Goodreads reviews, people either love this or hate it. And the interesting thing about it is that it's often for the same reason, which is that the main character is deeply unlikable. When I hear that, it sort of sets off alarm bells a little bit because I heard the exact same thing about Diary of an Oxygen Thief. And that ended up being probably the worst book that I've ever read. I think that was because, I don't know for a fact, but it felt like the author of Diary of an Oxygen Thief wanted me to kind of see where he was coming from. Do you know what I mean? Wanted me to be able to relate to the character. Like, yeah, he's a piece of crap, but you see his point, right? And I'm like, nah. I don't see his point. This book is written in a kind of autobiographical style from the perspective of a character named Oba Yozu, who feels completely disconnected from society, and the book follows his life from childhood into his late 20s. He's constantly trying to fit in. He's, trying all these different strategies, like acting like a clown, acting like a people pleaser, but none of it's really working, and he starts to spiral into some really destructive habits. I think this could be a really interesting read right now. I'm curious to see how the author handles themes like alienation and having to fake your identity just to fit in. It's supposed to be pretty gritty, but I've also heard that the prose is quite beautiful and it's considered a classic in Japanese literature. Also, the fact that it's fairly short means that if I do struggle with it a little bit, I can probably manage. You know what I mean? I could probably power through. The next book I'd love to read is Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. So a couple of months ago, the PBJ Bookclub selected Parable of the Sower as our read-along, and I really enjoyed it. It's set in this dystopian United States where the main character, Lauren Olamina, suffers from something called hyperempathy, which is basically she physically feels any pain that she witnesses. And over the course of the first book, and don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it for you, all right? But over the course of the first book, we see Lauren begin to develop a belief system and a kind of religion, which I can't remember the name of right now. Earthseed. I can remember it right now. She develops this belief system called Earthseed while she and a group of others travel through this hellish American landscape. And Parable of the Talents is the sequel to that book, where the story continues as a new fanatical movement rises from the ashes of a broken America. And from what I've heard, this one dives quite deep into religious fanaticism and political extremism, really looking at how people respond when they're just desperate for answers. And this figure rises and just hands them on a plate simple solutions to really complicated problems, and people are just hungry to eat that up, if you can imagine that. I've seen a few people say that they actually prefer Parable of the Talents to Parable of the Sower, so yeah, I'd love to catch up with the cast of characters. I probably am going to need a little bit of a refresher since it's been a few months, but I'd really love to read it. The next book I don't have a physical copy of, and that is Alantress by Brandon Sanderson. So last month, my desire to read Sanderson was reignited when I read The Emperor's Soul, which I absolutely loved. It's this kind of short novella. And Alantress by Brandon Sanderson is set in that same world as The Emperor's Soul. It's also a standalone fantasy novel as well. The way that I understand this book is that it's set in this like once glorious city where the inhabitants were these godlike creatures or these godlike beings, and they were immortal. And 10 years before this story begins, this book begins, the city and its people were struck by this mysterious curse that turned them all from these gods into these pitiful and decaying creatures. Off the top of my head, I hear that and it immediately gives me like Dark Souls or Elden Ring vibes, which, yeah, I mean, that gets me excited. I really like the premise, a city filled with fallen gods and lost magic. One of the things that I really liked about The Emperor's Soul was Sanderson's ability to build a kind of believable world and a grounded magic system that felt as though it almost had scientific application. So I'm definitely expecting a lot of that in Alantress too. I think the story is told from 3 different perspectives and each of the characters have their own like really rich narrative. I'm back on the Brando Sando train is what I'm trying to tell you. And this is actually the first book in the Cosmere. So if I enjoy this one, I might be going on a bit of a journey, mate. The next book I'd love to read is Discovery by J.A.J. Minton. So this is a book that I've been excited to read ever since I found out that it was being released. As I say, written by J.A.J. Minton. If you don't know who that is, it's actually the pen name for the family behind Talking Story, which is another booktube channel. If you watch this channel, you probably know who they are, right? But anyway, they've put out this book. Great cover, by the way. Well done on the cover. I'm sure the inside is just as good. It sounds exactly like something I would enjoy. Kind of feels tailor-made for me. It's set in the 90s where this ex-game show host who has kind of had his reputation fall through the floor. His name's Manny. He tries to stage a little bit of a media comeback with a deep sea TV special in the South Pacific. But instead of reviving his career, he ends up uncovering evidence of this sort of slumbering alien creature that's living in the ruins of an underwater city. Listen, I've got a little bit of the old thalassophobia. And by the way, I think every reasonable person should have that. You know, when you look under... Let me explain what thalassophobia is, just in case you don't know. It's a fear of deep bodies of water. Have you ever been in a really deep pool of water, in the ocean, for example, and looked down and just thought to yourself, I can't see the bottom of this, and that freaks me out. Like anything could be living under here. And I'm in this water, my little legs kicking at the top of this water, this tiny little person. To think of this gigantic creature lurking in the depths of the ocean beneath me, it freaks me out. The story's told from multiple POVs, and from what I understand, it has that kind of World War Z style global scope as well. It's not just about the discovery of this creature, but also about how societies might react to that news. Can you imagine? Would you go to work on Monday if you found out about that? It's also about how these cosmic entities might be quietly pulling the strings behind the scenes. It sounds really good, man. And also, it's the first book in a series as well. I really hope I like it, partly because I really like Talking Story. I like everyone on that channel, and I like all of their content, everything that they put out. So fingers crossed it comes up on the wheel. Fingers crossed I like it. So the next book that I'd really like to read is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So as I understand it, this book, the main character is a orphaned girl named Rin, and she wins a place in the Empire's military academy. And this is where she kind of discovers these shamanic powers that are rooted in Chinese mythology. This book is supposed to have some really great world building, again, all grounded in Chinese history. And it's also supposed to be a realistic depiction of how people react sometimes when they're faced with the horrors of war. It doesn't make any attempts to kind of glamorize war with cool epic battle scenes or, you know, big moments of courage, as far as I know. Because of Rin's age, I think there's also an element of like a coming of age story as well. Some people think that the battle scenes are almost too grim, but you know, I don't think I'm going to be having a problem with that, do you? But seriously, I've read some pretty grim stuff in my time, so yeah, hopefully I'll be able to deal with it. But yeah, it's supposed to be a gritty little journey. The next book, let me just try. Yeah, it's a bit of a chonker. It is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. So this is supposedly the greatest revenge story ever told. And as classics go, it's also supposed to be a bit of a page-turner, if my comment section is to be believed. The main character is Edmond Dantes, I think I'm pronouncing that right, who has been wrongfully imprisoned. And I think he's been imprisoned by another man who is maybe jealous. It's like a rival lover, and he's interested in Edmund's wife. Naughty. So through some political scheming, Edmund is locked away, and then whilst he is imprisoned for years, he plans his escape. This isn't spoilers, it's all on the back of the book. Don't worry, I can't spoil it for you, I ain't read it. But anyway, he escapes, he reinvents himself as the Count of Monte Cristo, and then from his new elevated position, he seeks revenge on everyone who wronged him and played a part in him getting arrested and imprisoned. It features a massive cast of characters. It's set in the Napoleonic era, and here's what I'm expecting from this book, right? I'm expecting some Machiavellian maneuvering, some backstabbing, some hiding in the shadows, some whispers and suggestions. I am also expecting some old school sword fencing. And I'm finally expecting some badass dialogue from some badass Frenchmen. Another book I'd love to read is The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the full trilogy edition. Last month, I read The Fellowship of the Ring. The month before, I read The Hobbit. And so I'm on my journey, you know? And I don't want that journey to be interrupted. I'm loving it so far. Obviously, like a lot of people watching this, I watched the movies when they first come out, and I loved them. Obviously, right? You can't not love them. If you don't love the movies, I question you, frankly. But I don't know, man. I think reading it, it's hitting me in a different way. There's such a sense of whimsy and wonder and adventure and exploration. I didn't love the songs. I'll admit, I didn't love the songs. I didn't love Tom Bombadil. I spoke about that a couple of days ago in another video that I released, so I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but for the most part, I loved it. I want to continue my journey alongside Frodo to Mordor. Hopefully it comes up, man. And another book I'd love to read is Shelter. This has been on the wheel a few times as well, I think. And it's about a young father. I've got his name written down here, Kyung Chao. And he is kind of living in the shadow of his very successful parents. But then this really violent act happens, and it means that he has to bring his family, his parents, sorry, in to live with his family. And so now they're all living under the same roof, And because they're kind of bumping heads with one another, some old family history gets resurfaced and old tensions get relived. And so we get to witness that and the fallout from that. This book is supposed to really explore a sense of family duty and what a son owes to his parents and what parents owe to their children, the resentment that can cause when things don't go how you imagined they would. So yeah, just a lot of intensity in a pressure cooker of one family all living under the same roof. Okay, so those are all of your contestants. What I'm going to do now is spin the wheel 4 times, but just before I do that, I want to take a moment to thank all of my Patreon subscribers for supporting the channel. A big thank you to the cult members. A massive thank you to the named men. And an extra special thank you to the quartet. All of you make this channel possible, and I'm so glad that we get to build this reading community together. Seriously, thanks so much for being a part of it. And if you enjoy this channel and you think, do you know what, I wouldn't mind supporting this and maybe getting some perks out of it as well, like the Metallic Paperback Journeys bookmark, access to some of the exclusive rooms on the Discord server, and also access to the PBJ Bookclub, then you can click on the link in the description below. Okay, so I'm going to spin the wheel 4 times now, and then after that, don't forget, I'm going to reveal what the PBJ Bookclub chose for our read-along this month. Really excited to tell you about that. All right, let's go. This is my favorite. This is my favorite, man. I love this. Every month I get to do this. All right, here we go. The Count of Monte Cristo. I am excited by this. Don't let my reaction fool you, but that is the fattest book of the lot. That's really setting the tone. That's the first book. Okay. Listen, I've been looking forward to reading it for ages, so let's find out. Maybe some of the other ones might be a little bit slimmer books. Here we go. That's the Count of Monte Cristo again. So remember, we always go by this thing here, all right? So, and by the way, every month we get a repeat. It happens every month. It's never not happened. All right, let's go. The Count of Monte Cristo again. All right, let's go. World War Z. That ain't so bad. That's a little bit of a thinner one. All right, World War Z. Exciting. Right, next up. Boy's Life. All right, that's another fat one again. We're back on the chonkers. Another chonker. Oh, yeah, look at this. Just before I spin it one more time, look at this. Oh, mate. And remember, there's another one. And then there's another one that I'm reading with the book club. All right. Okay, here we go. One more time. World War Z again. My dog's sneezing in the background. All right, let's spin again. World War Z again. All right, let's spin again. Boy's Life again. All right, let's spin again. Boy's Life again. All right, let's spin again. See, I did it in the same way. All right. World War Z again. Is this thing bloody rigged? I swear, it ain't normally like this. We normally get 1, but we don't normally get like 20. All right. Ew, what do you think the chances are that we're going to get one of the 3 that we've already got? Go on, place your bets, and let's go again. Who voted yes? This thing's cursed. All right, this is mental this week. This one's for the decider. Yes, let's go. It is actually another one of the fatter books. All right, J.A.J. Minton. I'm reading it. I'm reading it this month. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. I can do it. I can do it. I can do anything. All right, now let's find out what I'm going to tell you right now what the PBJ Book Club has chosen for our read-along this month. And, before I do that, here's the question. Of these books here, do you think that you will be able to guess what rating I give each of these books if you think you can have a go in the Discord. We've got the rating game. And if you get closer than anyone else to guessing what I'm going to be rating everything that I read this month, then you get to win an Amazon, I normally call it voucher, but I don't think Americans call it a voucher, an Amazon gift card is what you're going to win. So yeah, if you think you're good at guessing what, or you kind of know what I like and you think, yeah, I'm going to be able to guess what he rates all of these on Goodreads, then yeah, give it a little go. By the way, if you don't follow me on Goodreads, you can do that as well if you want to. And so, yeah, that brings us to the point where I'm going to tell you now what the PBJ Book Club has chosen to read along together this month. And that book is Persuasion by Jane Austen. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're classy, man. You thought that this was just, you thought the only books that I read are like fantasy, horror, and sci-fi. No, I read the classics, bruv. If you want to read the classics with me, then you can join in the PBJ Book Club. But here are all of the books that I'm going to be reading. Look at this. That's absolutely disgraceful. It's sickening. What have you done to me? Oh my goodness. So if you'd like to vote on what the book club reads next month, which is going to be August, then you can go onto the Patreon and vote for that as well. So yeah, that's everything. I'm really excited. If you want to see what I rated last month's books and what I read, then you can do that by clicking on that video that's appearing up there. Thanks so much for watching this video. As always, I had loads of fun and I hope you did too. Happy reading.